I have a friend. I can't believe it. His name's Kevin Wiener.
He's another Kevin.
He's another Kevin.
This isn't the same Kevin that was on the K-Mud show with you.
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is?
Okay,
Oh, how funny is that?
So I just met this cat, right? And people were trying to get me to be friends with him. And I looked at on Facebook, and I looked him up, and went to his page, right? And he's got like, I don't know, like 5,000 friends or something. I was like, yeah, it's about right for somebody that likes,
Bugs,
which every
quote
time,
unquote insects.
everything. Yeah, let me know when we start, because I got to start.
We're going right now.
Oh, we're going right
now?
Okay, so we have to start this off with society does not know the difference in between an insect and a bug. Do you?
I don't. I won't even pretend to.
Okay, so everybody's getting it wrong. You can't be wrong if you call them insects, okay? You are going to be wrong 95% of the time if you call it a bug. The world I live in is absolutely insane. 80% of the animal kingdom has 6 legs, 3 body parts, and 2 antennae. You got yourself an insect, okay? In order to be a true bug, that is a subcategory of insects. So on top of having 6 legs, 3 body parts, 2 antennae, you also need a couple more attributes. One of them is piercing, sucking mouth parts that suck the juices of plants or animals. And the other one, it sounds like a little bit of gibberish, but it's quite simple. It's called incomplete metamorphosis. Okay? All that means is that the little baby version looks just like the adult version. Okay? So what I have collected over the last year, less than a year, are mostly insects. I don't have a lot of bugs in my collection. So I like
How funny is that?
Yeah, so when I go in and share what I've found, I ask people if they can figure out how many bugs I got. And I'm like, no, I only got like 3 or 4 of them. Yeah, the rest of them are insects. So, but I have very low standards, okay? For society.
Well, because most people would get it wrong.
Yeah, we all, coined the term the general public, as in, we got to take it easy on the general public, set the bar.
People.
Yeah, set a reasonable bar for people. So I tell people, I'm like, okay, I have not found a way to say insect without sounding like a complete tool. Okay.
I feel that way when people say karate.
Yeah.
Which is how you're supposed to pronounce it, but you just feel kind of like a tool.
Yeah.
Like it's karate.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Karate, right?
Right.
Come on.
So I'm okay. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll meet you in the middle. We can call them bugs as long as we know that in a scientific argument, if you want to be taken seriously, please call them insects. Because if you start calling them bugs, it means you haven't read the first page. Okay? And that's where I have to start with everybody on this subject is page 1. I've been waiting for somebody to jump out of the bushes and say, hey, you can't do that, and just mop the floor with me saying that they know more than me on the subject, okay? So that's an inherent, anxiety that I had.
Like a looming threat.
Yeah, I always thought that there was somebody out there that was going to be better at me than this. And that, if I made what I did initially, which the first time I did this was immediately after I graduated Humboldt State University in 2012. I got my degree in recreation administration because I'm not a great student. I'm like a C student, and as much as I love insects, there's no work in it. And so I found a way where I could have fun for a living, right? So I moved 1,200 miles from Arcata out to Sedona, Arizona to get a job. And this is during the recession.
So this is 2008.
Yeah. Well, I graduated 2012.
Oh, okay.
Okay. We're
so
still
the aftermath, you're still feeling it.
Oh, yeah. We're definitely still feeling it. I had a buddy of mine at the same time period go up to Alaska after asking my advice with my experience going up there and fishing commercially. And I made him promise me not to go on a fishing boat. And he actually
listened to your advice.
Listened to my advice, because I said, hey, Andy, there's more work than there are people up there. You're going to find a good job, and going to try to drag you onto a boat, but it's no joke. Those cameras aren't lying. There's a lot of things that you see on TV that are blown out of proportion to be sensationalized.
So you were actually on the Deadliest Catch. You were on the show.
I worked directly with the boats. They're 110 feet long, the crabbing boats. I did what they do in fall, which I stayed in Bristol Bay. It's still the Bering Sea. And they do something called gill netting for sockeye salmon. It's the largest sockeye salmon running in the world. And they fish with a net you throw out the back of the boat on a giant drum, and it fishes the top 12 feet. Okay, so you got a cork line, which is floating, and a lead line. And the lead line has a lead core in it, and it sinks down 12 feet. And then you have in between 100 yards to 300 yards of net behind the boat. And that experience was akin to what I imagine previous cultures had when a coming of age trial, because it almost killed me 6 times. And coming from California, where all the corners are padded and everybody's very conscientious of what is dangerous and what is acceptable to do, and people are very quick to tell you, hey, don't do that. Okay. That's not the case there. Okay. It's get in there. It's not, hey, look out. It's all right. I asked my captain the first time we went to offload on one of these crabbing boats. They have a hook. It weighs about 30 pounds and the waves are going up maybe 12 feet. Our boats are limited to 32 feet. And we tie up onto their boat so that they can take our fish off of our boat and put it in their larger fish hold. And there's a hook, weighs like 30 pounds, has a scale on it. And we're bobbing up and down. Their boat's solid in the water. Okay, they're like a tank. And we're just like a rubber ducky boat in the bathtub, right? And I see this hook swinging around. And he says, okay, so your job's to jump in that brailer bag, grab that hook when it comes swinging down and hook it in to the brailer bag real quick and jump out. And I say, hey, Captain, that don't sound very safe. But he says,
you're in the wrong business.
He says, of course it ain't safe. He says, keep your head on your shoulders. You'll be all right. And those words have resonated with me throughout that experience. Keep your head on your shoulders. You'll be all right. Of course it ain't safe. Just watch out, be aware of that and watch out. Coming back to California afterwards, it was a dynamic shift.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, coming back to California and people were telling me, hey, you're driving just a little bit too fast. You're just a little too, you're taking a lot more risks than you used to do, Kevin. And one experience specifically when I was on a backpacking trip with an ex-Marine. He was a friend of mine named Kevin Miller. Another Kevin. Too many Kevins in the society.
It's hard to keep track.
Way too many Kevins. But great individual, and I climbed up this dead tree to set up a bear bag hang, and he told me to get out of that tree. It was dangerous. I was about 10 feet up there. He said, that's a dead tree, if you just snap. I jumped out of the tree at his feet to the point where my boots, kicked up dust onto it. I had put my finger in his face. I say, I'll let you know when this gets dangerous. I'm glad I got over that. But yeah.
How long were you out there doing that?
Oh, it was just one season.
Just one season?
Yeah, so like 3 months.
One and done. You had enough.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. One and done. It was, I was sent up there. I was studying fisheries at the time. My buddy, he was in a fisheries class of mine. He kept talking about these boats and how much money he made last summer. And being a fisheries major, I said, I want to see both sides of the coin here. If I'm going to be a well-rounded individual, I can't just fish for fun. And I got to see what the commercial guys do, feel it inside out and understand the whole picture. And he wouldn't give me the number. He says, no, I'm not going to do that to you. It took 3 months of me pestering him over and over. And I'm like, no, I want to go, dude. He says, all right, well, this is the worst captain in the fleet. He's going to hire you, but it's because he has to hire a whole new crew every season. So, good luck. And called him up. He wasn't lying. He was not lying. Oh, man.
And so are you guys just trolling with that net? Just scooping out everything you can?
Oh, yeah. So I've seen sustainable practices and unsustainable practices. And I'm glad for the experience because it gives me a better dynamic when people ask me about my collecting, okay? And they're very concerned about the impact to the ecosystem when it comes to my collecting and taking specimens for research or display. One at a time with a net just makes me a typical predator. Okay, I'm just on the food chain like everything else. I make a bigger impact on insect populations when I am driving on my way to the show, okay, than when I am actively collecting specimens for research. There are actions that we take that impact these populations that are just invisible to us. So I'm making the invisible visible. And to some people, that could be very jarring, but that's a part of the learning process. And people are a little whispered in their voice when they're, because they're genuinely concerned. And I accept the question as an invitation for conversation. I'm not locked in my ways, and I say, I would love to hear your thoughts on this because it is an excellent segue to talk about insect populations and the dynamic of their strategies for survival, which it's a numbers game. It's insane. Half of the animal mass on this planet has 6 legs, 3 body parts, 2 antennae. Okay, there's over, the books I've read have spanned in between 200 million and 1.26 billion individual insects for every human on this planet. Insects are the last family of animals on this planet that we still compete with for food. Okay? We spray our crops with a derivative of Agent Orange. It's warfare against insects ever since the beginning of time. And the way that we rationalize this is also very militaristic because we call them pests, pest control, pesticide.
It's more palatable to swallow at that point.
Well, what you're doing is you're demonizing 80% of the animal kingdom. When you demonize the enemy, that is a militaristic tactic so that you don't feel as bad about attacking the enemy.
That's why it's more palatable.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if we were spraying these, 100-acre farms to kill bunnies.
Yeah.
People would be up in arms.
Oh, yeah. They're
so
cute.
What are we doing?
What are you doing? But who wants to hurt a bunny? Is the same. And so I invite the conversation, although people feel like they don't apprehensive because they don't necessarily want to attack me, but they want to address something that they have a concern over. And so I try to tell them it's okay. I would love to discuss this with you. Let's talk about it. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
It helps that you do have that background and having worked in a field where the practices are unsustainable, where you're just trolling with this giant net, scooping out everything.
I've seen unsustainable harvests. I know what's sustainable and what's unsustainable. And a lot of actions we take in this society are not sustainable. But when it comes to insects, the studies, and I hate bringing up this study because it makes me feel like I'm being unreasonable, but all of the studies that have been conducted on collecting insects show that insect collecting has a 0% impact on insect populations. They rebound. It takes billions of dollars to eradicate one species of insect once it's established. And the perfect example of that would be this guy. And I invite you to take a look at this.
Can I grab the top of that?
Absolutely. So, that fly is called a screw fly. That fly has had a huge economic impact on our farming industry, specifically when it comes to livestock. They lay eggs in open wounds, and the larvae do exactly what you think they do. They eat the tissues, and they develop inside the organism.
But it's not like a bot fly where that's its intended purpose?
It's a small bot fly.
Oh, it is?
It is.
Oh, my God.
Okay. We haven't had to deal with this in recent history because it was such an impact on North America. We sterilized. We came up with a program, and we found that we could sterilize individuals just by shooting an X-ray at them at the beginning of their development. And so they came up with a system where they would sterilize millions of flies, and they would drop them from planes to distribute them. It was so successful, we eradicated the species down to Mexico. And then we got the Mexican government to allow us to continue doing this because we minimized the border that we have to do this all the way down to Panama. So you know the Panama Canal? The whole reason we have a Panama Canal is because it's the narrowest land body to connect the two oceans. Same reason we got it down to there. So now instead of needing to patrol the Mexican border in its entirety to control the population, we said, hey, we want to do this. It's going to benefit us both. And when we're done, we're going to get the cost of keeping this regulated down to, I don't know, $10 million a year. I don't quote me on that. It's significantly less than monitoring the entire U.S. Mexican border, and it saves billions of dollars for the livestock industry every year.
That's crazy. The color on this is insane.
Okay.
That blue.
And this looks very, very familiar too.
I don't know if people are going to be able to see. I mean, it's such a small little fly.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's why I'm going to every school and saying that I'm pushing for small groups when I do these presentations because I want you to hold this. Everybody else, all the other entomologists that create these collections, they like hold them behind some sort of like lock and key. Like you're not allowed to see this up close for some reason. They attribute that, and I'm not that way. I want to open the box. I want to bring it out. I want you to see everything about it because this is your ecosystem. And this is a part of the ecosystem a lot of people don't get to see. Or it's just so small they don't notice.
I got up there to try to I set that third camera right in the middle of us. So if you hold it in the middle, people might be able to see it a little bit better there.
So this fly right here, I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit, but it'll be worth it.
You can keep talking. I'm listening.
Oh, I got you. Okay, so this fly right here. Let me tell you, this has been the best year of my life. Okay? I'm the bug kid. I just grew up. There's no difference. And at the beginning of this year, well, it started about 4 years ago. There is a gentleman in Humboldt County here. He's one of our like C-list celebrities. He goes by Griff Griffith now. He
works for the parks.
Well, he used to. I actually took over his position this year. I'm walking in the footsteps of giants. Okay, I can't believe I get to say this, and I'm saying this out loud. So about 4 years ago, I saw a video by Griff, and he was discussing this species right here. Okay? So this is a cicada. And Griff, in his video, was discussing cicadas, and he kept repeating a phrase. He kept saying, and I invite you to hold this, take a look at it.
Check it out right now.
Because these are absolutely fascinating. And he kept saying they're the sound of heat. They're the sound of heat. Okay? And their emergence is, they're well known for having a long juvenile stage and then emerging in the millions and trillions and overwhelming the ecosystem. That's kind of their game. The news last summer, it was all over because there's two populations. I believe it was the 19-year and the 13-year cicada. Their emergence converged, and so there was like an explosion of cicadas, and it became notable to everybody. I even heard the news say that the only two cicada species, like there's only two that we have, and he says, both of them are coming out. Cicadas are math nerds. Okay, so there's about 4,000 known species of cicada. There's 1,000. There's not just two. With insects, there's 1 million known species that we know of. All the top when I say 80% of the animal kingdom is insect, I'm talking about the ones that we've discovered. Now, all the top entomology is the study of insects. So all the top entomologists, everybody I look up to, I've read from throughout my life, they all agree that there is, in fact, 10 million. We estimate there's 10 million insects on this planet, which means 9 million of them are left to be discovered out there. And that blows my mind because I haven't found anything in a science fiction film that does not exist at the insect level already with what we found. So when I think about what could be out there, there's really no limit. And I invite, after my presentations, I invite my audience to, think about what you think's out there. Make your own, okay? Within the parameters of an insect. 3 body parts, 6 legs, 2 antennae. Got yourself an insect. Anything else? Go for it, man. And I say, give it a superpower. What's its superpower? I know organisms that run so fast, there's not enough photons being received by their eyes to create an image. They go blind, okay? That's called the tiger beetle. We have them everywhere distributed. Whenever we go to the rivers here, we got 6 major rivers in Humboldt County, okay? Anywhere at the water's sandy edge, you'll see these beetles that are zigzagging and running and chasing stuff. But they can only zigzag for like 2 feet at a time before they have to stop.
Because they don't know what's in front of them.
Exactly. They see where they want to be, and then they're there, and they have to stop and figure out where they want to go next. Okay, that's the Flash. Okay,
that's pretty insane.
It's just like the cartoons, man. When
except he can see still.
Yeah.
So now, it's even crazier than that.
So specifically, the Australian tiger beetle is the fastest land-running organism on the planet. It's 1 centimeter long, lives in Australia, of course, and it runs at 5.4 miles an hour. So when I'm around like elementary kids, I tell them like, that's as fast as you can run, huffing and puffing. This thing's 1 centimeter long. If it was the size of a normal person, it would be running around 720 miles an hour. Okay, that is nearly the speed of sound. That's the speed of a passenger jet. At ground level, can you imagine being on a passenger jet at ground level? Yeah, you're not gonna be able to see nothing either. Like that, that's the world that I like to live in. Okay, I get inspired every time I go outside because the world they live in is terrifying and amazing and wonderful. They recently found out that butterflies carry a static charge when they flap their wings. This static charge can attract pollen from flowers without them even touching it. That's telekinesis. Okay? Butterflies can pollinate a flower just by flying close enough to it because they have a static cling of pollen around them just by flapping their wings. And I could go on and on about insects, but cicadas, back to Griff, meeting Griff. He ended his show. He repeated this phrase over and over, and he ended the show. And cicadas, they're the sound of heat. And to me, that was just aggravating. I'm like, so I was internet polite for once, And I said, hey, Griff, I didn't know if he was actually going to read my comment or anything like that. But I said, hey, Griff, I've been learning about insects my whole life, and I understand you know a lot about animals, but let me help you out here. Cicadas are the only insect species known to sweat. So they can regulate their body temperatures when other animals can't. So they are active at the hottest part of the day as a predator avoidance technique. So that is why they're the sound of heat, because they will only sound off once the environment hits a certain temperature.
So what does that noise stem from? Is that them sweating? They're making that noise while they sweat?
No, I love how your gears are turning, dude. This is exactly why I do it. And that's exactly the questions I ask out in the field that keep me doing it every time. So cicadas, when that's the males, okay? The males are screaming. I mean, they could be the decibel range of an insect that's only a couple inches long. I haven't converted that and made it larger or not, but it would be
incredibly loud.
If they were the size of us, our eardrums would shatter.
I spent a lot of time up at Trinity Lake growing up, and you would hear them. It would just echo through the woods.
Yeah. So there's like 4,000 species of them. Each one, their brood will emerge only in primary number years, depending on the species. So there's a 3-year cicada, there's a 7-year cicada, there's a 13-year cicada, a 19-year cicada.
Only in primary numbers. Why is that?
It's a predator avoidance technique. They do not want predators to sync up their breeding patterns with their emergence. They are trying to be as random as possible. So that's how the news station came up with, this is once every 255 years. Now, I'm throwing out 255. I know that the number that came out was 19 times 13, because you multiply those two together, and that's how often those numbers are going to overlap. Yeah. So it's just like in why they don't want this to happen is because it's like going to the club and trying to find your friends, you know? If you get all your friends together and go to the club and you find out another group of friends did the same thing, it's going to be harder for you to find each other on the dance floor. It's going to be noisy and loud, and you're going to be like, Mike, where you at? That's exactly what they're doing. So they try to avoid that. But they're trying to make it so that predators can't sync up with them, because it's a buffet. It's an all-you-can-eat buffet, but it's the males. The males are the ones that are screaming. They are so committed to finding a female, they have shriveled their internal organs up nearly into their thorax, leaving a giant hollow drum, and it's called a timbal. It's almost like I think it's called a maraca, where you strum, or a washboard and spoon. That's what I'm getting at. And they're rubbing that back and forth to make that noise. And they have a big resonance chamber that's magnifying the sound. The females, they are chock full of eggs. I had eggs for breakfast this morning. I think they're delicious. A lot of the animal kingdom thinks so too. So she's got to hide her eggs. She doesn't make a sound. What she'll do is she will fly onto the object the male is sounding from, and she will tap her body against that object lightly to get his attention. So, as a magic trick, if you want to impress your friends and you hear a lot of cicadas in a tree or a bush, go up to it and just lightly snap your fingers. And you're going to have a lot of excited males flying onto you real quick. Now, don't do that unless you're ready for it, okay? It might scare you, but it's one of those insect tricks I like showing people. You know, being in tune with the world around you. I think it's amazing. And being able to interact and understand the interactions that I'm having with them is, I don't know. I just love, I love them. I can't stop loving them. So I told Griff about that, and he says, you sure know a lot about insects. You know, it's not my strong suit, but as an environmental interpreter, I'm really interested. And so for 4 years, I've been kind of giving him tips, you know, and mentoring him in a way on a subject that I specialize in that he doesn't. And it was this year where he said, Kevin, if you became an interpreter for the state parks, you could teach people about this. You could take people on insect walks. And I said, Griff, I thought the parks was a big old botany club. All you guys like talking about are like the elk and the redwoods.
And the moss.
Yeah. And so I said, there's no representation for insects anywhere in there. That's a problem. So he told me who to talk to. He says, tell him Griff sent you. I said, all right. So I walked in. I said, you don't have representation for 80% of the animal kingdom. That's insane. And I'm here. I can change that for you. And they said, you know what? You're right. And they gave me a shot. They let me in. I got 2 displays in the Grizzly Creek State Park Visitor Center in my first season. I am being the change I want to see in the world. The programming I came up with was the same program I created when I was in Arizona that was successful. I told them I could do it again. I said, if you give me enough time, I can make it even better. And I got to go back to the guy I said that to at the end of the season. I said, I did it.
Mission
Check
accomplished.
it out. Mission accomplished. It was so good. I got headhunted by educators throughout the summer in our community that wanted me to present at schools. And as soon as my season ended, I went ahead and did those programs, and they were so successful, and the kids were just beaming with me. It's the greatest feeling I've ever had. And it just feels so organic for me right now. It's just like everything's taken off. So that gave me the confidence to continue with it. I brought my collection back to Poly Humboldt. At the beginning of summer, before I went in with the parks, they had a position available as an insect identifier. I applied. I didn't even get an interview. They sent me a letter. It said, our apologies. Don't feel bad. There was over 100 candidates. Better luck next time. I don't typically do this, but because it's something I'm the most passionate about in my life, I wrote them a letter back. I said, with all due respect, you made a mistake. I said, I don't care if there's 1,000 applicants. I can compete. And you should have at least heard me out, And I said, and respectfully, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to stay in this community, and you're going to see me again. And I hope you consider me for positions in the future, right? At the end of this summer, when I saw all this success and I presented to these schools, it was working out, I brought my collection back to the university, and I found that professor that listed that position. I showed him what I created, and he marched me back to show me the university's collection. My collection's bigger. Okay. And he has pizza boxes from the floor to the ceiling. Okay. Giant pizza boxes. There's probably like 5 of these stacks. And he grabs one and opens it up. And on the inside, there's a sticky trap with a whole bunch of little gnats on it, like 100 gnats. He says, your job, if we took you, would be to go through each one of these pizza boxes and identify like 2 species of fly. He says, you found a better job. And that is what led me to get invited on to K-Mud Radio, which I discussed insect population decline. Once again, that's a topic that comes up regularly because people get emotional when they see what I've done. And I'm glad, because it should have an impact on you. This is something that you don't see every day. And we need to make it more common. The university doesn't have an official collection. They said they have hired somebody to create a collection next year. So Poly Humboldt, all they're doing, well, they took my bumblebees. They're studying bumblebees, and they looked at my bumblebees and looking kind of green. I said, hey, don't have to be like that. I made this for a reason. If you want to study my bumblebees,
just ask.
Yeah. And so I gave them, they were like, really? And I said, yeah, I don't know why everybody's locking these things up. That's exactly why I have this. So I gave them my bumblebees, and you'll see that they are the only insects in my collection that came back with a label on it, because they were very upset at me.
I did notice that.
Yeah.
When you were passing around the boxes there.
Yeah. So this collection is meant to inspire. And the only reason I didn't get my degree in fisheries is because I could not pass my ichthyology class, which is basically learning the Latin names of every animal, specifically for fish in that class. And so I now perceive Latin as a gatekeeping device into the sciences, into the natural sciences. And I believe if I had a bunch of Latin names in these boxes, people would feel that. And I don't want people to feel left out, because they don't understand it. So I'm here. Every time I show these off, I'm there. If you have a question, just ask me. I'll tell you everything about every last one of these species. And it's working. The kids just jump into these boxes. What's this one? What's that one? What does it do? If I had Latin, they don't want to hear the Latin names. That'll come later. This collection's meant to inspire and to awaken people to the world that we're living around.
Well, I think it does just that. I mean, it's weird that's kind of the barrier of entry, is you have to memorize an ancient language so that you can name these species.
Yeah. It's difficult. If I can't pronounce the name,
how are you going to remember it?
I mean, my hat's off to more practiced scientists than myself, because it's not hard. It's not easy to memorize all those Latin names. It's a weak spot for me. Yeah.
Well, and there's a reason we don't speak Latin today.
Well, we do, and now after my first opportunity in Arizona.
What was that opportunity?
I got to be an activities coordinator for a big timeshare. Now, I'm not a timeshare salesman. I got to be the good one. I didn't sell anything. But they told me my job was to think of the funnest thing I could do and turn it into an activity and invite everybody to come along and put it in my activities schedule. It was the best job ever until now. Now that this is the only thing that could top that. And so I said, are you sure? And they said, why? I said, because I want to do an insect show. And I know it doesn't exist, but that's what I want to do. I got to create it. And that was the first time I fulfilled my dream. They said, well, it's the desert. You got to have scorpions and tarantulas in it. And I said, all right, I'll meet you in the middle. I guess I'd say, okay. So we called it a critter show. And it was so good that I had a gentleman, Fernando Caruvias. He's now retired. He was the lead primate keeper at the San Diego Zoo. He invited me to go to Guatemala with him on an expedition. We went 150 miles along the ancient Mayan highway. We hired 7 locals to go through the jungle with us. We spent 7 days on this journey to go to El Mirador, which is the 3rd largest temple in the world. And at the time, they were excavating the Mayans' creation story. Great creation story, by the way. Totally blew me away. Really hardcore compared to, I think, the more gentle stories that we have here in America. When we got there, well, I found out that insects in Spanish is insectos, and I ended up taking photos of everything I saw. And after we returned, I was going through them and trying to figure out the species. I found one I couldn't figure out. And then I started asking around. I looked through all my books. Nobody else can figure it out either. So as far as I'm concerned, I did it. I found my own species on accident. Okay. There is so much to be discovered out there and it's in the countries that don't have the privileges that we have in America. Okay. My eyes were opened to less fortunate countries and what they're going through. They're still dealing with food, water, security, shelter. Okay. When you don't have those things, you don't have the time to be looking for new species of insect. That's kind of low on the priority list.
Yeah.
So
do they think that's where the bulk of that 9 million insect species that still remains unfound is in like South America or the Amazon?
Definitely. While I was hiking there, I saw maps of the jungle that had gray zones that just said undiscovered, unexplored. And I haven't seen that on a map before. Like, I'm not trying to go, off trail in the middle of Guatemala in the jungles. That's taking it a bit too far. But there are places like that everywhere. And if you want to find your own species, and I tell this to kids all the time, to people, my audience, I say, that was a childhood dream. I want to name something after myself. I want to find something and name it after myself. You can do that.
Did you name that species?
Well, it's an intrinsic reward because I'm not familiar with making an official.
How it goes.
Yeah. And it would require me to go back and find it again. I'm just a guy with a picture.
You were happy just to have found it the once.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just a guy with a picture. So I call it the Kevinus caterpillicus. And to me, I did it. So that's good enough for me. And I know that since I did that once, all it takes is just to do it. Just go to a country that's not as well known and just look at your feet. They're crawling everywhere.
And stepping on them.
Yeah, exactly. And the smaller you go, the less people pay attention, the more you're going to find. I found 270 different species of insect over the last summer of me collecting this. I've added probably, I know safely, a dozen species to California. I identify them. I post them on iNaturalist. I highly encourage anybody that's interested in the world around you. It will. There is an app on your phone. It's called Seek. It's made by iNaturalist. iNaturalist, currently, we're living in an amazing day and age. Okay. Sometimes I just love the world we live in. Okay. And this is one of them because iNaturalist created my childhood dream and made it an app. By the time I was in 3rd grade, I had read every single book in the library. Every recess, every lunch, I was in the library reading about insects. I ran out of books to read. So what I was left with was this Audubon Society book that I still have to this day. It is the Field Guide to North American Insects and Spiders. Spiders are not insects, so it's insects and spiders. And I took this book out into the field, and I just started identifying things. And it used to take a really long time. Now, you just point your phone at anything, and it'll tell you exactly what it is and everything about it instantly. It's called Seek, S-E-E-K. It's made by iNaturalist. iNaturalist, all the major scientists in the world are using this as a database to collect observations and for study. And you can make your observation a scientifically available observation by clicking one button on Seek. It says Post to iNaturalist. It fills in the date, time, location, and your photo. And it waits for other scientists around the world to verify it. But once they do, it's a research grade. Okay?
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I have observations I've made, and I've gotten a reply. Last month, I got a reply from an entomologist in Ukraine. I'm like, I'm not going to... Amazing to be connected with somebody on the other side of the world. Hey, check this little thing I got out. Oh, that's a good one.
And over something like insects.
Yeah. It removes the barrier to entry. Anybody can do it.
Everybody's got a phone nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like Star Trek, man. We're living in Star Trek, analyzing it. What is this? They used to do that. Like I said, science fiction is science fact. Science fact now. So I use Seek. I highly encourage people to use Seek first. It's very user friendly. iNaturalist has an app, but
not quite as good.
Not as good as the website. If you have a PC or a Mac, personal computer, it is much better as a website because you can drag your cursor around an area and whatever you're into, you can say fungus. If you like mushrooms, it'll show you all the fungus. And then you go to list, you say, hey, how many species are here? And it'll show you all the species. And if you have a target, especially in Humboldt County, we're in the middle of mushroom season right now. We love our mushrooms. If you want to find chanterelles, morels, anything like that, look it up on iNaturalist, and it snitches on everybody's secret spot.
Oh, man.
You can formulate adventures, and that's what I do all the time. I target a species, I find out where it is. It makes my hikes so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, the hard part's been removed.
Yeah, you're like, my favorite fungus is called woolly bird's nest fungus. It's very small. It's like half an inch, okay? It looks like a bird's nest, and it has eggs inside of it. And those eggs aren't eggs, of course. It's a mushroom. It's actually packets of spore. And their technique, their distribution technique is waiting for a drop of rain to drop into the bowl and splash those spore packets out. And you can look that up, find out where it's been found before, plan your next hike or walk. It opens up the world.
And opens it up to people that might not have been able to access it before.
When I was on K-Mud Radio with a friend of mine that I invited to come on, his name's Kevin Wiener. He is... he's from the East Coast. I didn't realize how popular he was on Facebook. He has a group with 150,000 followers. It's called All Bugs Go to Kevin. I'm very glad that somebody suggested we be friends. And once we saw that we have the same dream on opposite sides of the country, that's how far I have to go to find a peer. Okay. I am so glad to have him as a connection now. And a resource, because it's hard. It's not a very well covered subject. I apologize. What were we discussing?
We were going all over the place. I was just listening to you go. I did want to ask the Mayan creation story.
Oh yeah.
I'm not familiar with their creation story.
Okay, so as I remember it, without going into fuzzy details and getting incorrect. The basics of it was there was a gentleman that died and went to the underworld. Okay. His brother decided that's not going to happen. What do you mean that's not going to happen? So what he did, he killed himself, went into the other world, and dragged his soul back from the underworld and brought him back to the world of the living. That's the gist of it.
Dragged him back.
Yeah, and when we showed up to El Mirador, they were still excavating it, and Morgan Freeman flew over us in a helicopter. He was filming a documentary called Life when I was there. When I saw the helicopter fly over us, I was kind of envious because it took us 7 days, to get there. But
you're watching this helicopter,
and I'm like, he took the easy way out. Nah, you know what? I like being in it. I think he kind of missed out on the best part. But when we got there, the leader of the local village that was leading us there, he's like, oh yeah, it's right here. You want me to show it to you? And he picks up a stick and he starts standing on it and he's whacking it with a stick as he's telling us the story. And we're like, oh my God, can you do that? It's not our country, it's your thing, but I don't know if you want to be hitting it with a stick, It's just, it looks like it just got uncovered yesterday,
Breaking pieces off already.
Yeah. And man, there's a whole story to be said about what's happening in Guatemala.
Well, especially with the Amazon, they're doing those LiDAR scans, discovering all of these cities, essentially, that have just been reclaimed by the forest.
Now, why the LiDAR works is something I learned about the jungle. The jungle is flat. I never thought about this. It is completely flat. So whenever you have a hill or a bump in the middle of the Guatemalan jungle, that's a structure. That's a structure that's been buried by debris. And so as we're walking, there are mounds about the size of a one-story house, of a small one-story house. Not everywhere, but every once in a while you'll find this mound. And there's trees and stuff growing on it. You would think it's normal, but every single one of them is an ancient house. And if you're lucky, it hasn't been raided yet. So the leader of the local village told us that he was there to protect us from raiders and make sure that we didn't become raiders ourselves, because there are so many structures in that jungle. All it would take is one LiDAR system. You'd map out.
It's flat.
It is flat, which it is incredible. The jungle is incredibly loud. Every morning and every evening, you are witness to a death metal show. Okay. There are howler monkeys in this forest, and they sound just like a death metal band. And when their screams echo, especially because it's flat, it can just go for miles. And it's just, as soon as first light comes up and the first one wakes up, starts screaming, just bellows for 20 miles. And there's another, group of them down there, and they start screaming back. And it's just everything screaming at each other. First light and last light. If you're not ready for it, it can be quite terrifying. It's a very powerful experience. It lets you know that the world is alive here, for sure. I'm very grateful for experiencing that myself.
Yeah, what an experience.
Yeah. Now, if anybody is looking for a good read, my hero, I would recommend anything by Edward E.O. Wilson. He was considered the Darwin of our age. I was actually quite upset a couple years ago when he passed away. He was writing these nonfiction books until all the way until the year he died. And he is the most eloquent writer. He's who I look up to, and he is actually what even modern New York Times bestseller books, like Nature's Best Hope, that's out right now. A lot of people are talking about Nature's Best Hope. They reference E.O. Wilson within the book. And when I was working at the parks throughout the visitor center, there's E.O. Wilson quotes on the walls. So if you want to cut out the middleman, just read E.O. Wilson's work. I've read at least 6 of his books, and the only thing that's stopping me from reading more is because I'm afraid of when I run out. I'm like, man, there's only so many.
Is he writing about insects?
Yes, sir. He's my hero. This man discovered over 400 new species of insect, and then he stopped. He said that he got tired of discovering new species, and he needed to find more meaningful work. That is the most impressive statement I have ever heard somebody say. I'm sorry. I'm just going to leave this to somebody else. I've already found 400 of these things. I need to change the world in a more impactful way. Like, what could you possibly be talking about? So that's why I say this world needs more collections, because we don't even know what we have. We don't even know what we have yet, and we're already talking about losing species that haven't been discovered.
Well, I think most people's introduction to that was with bees, back when we were on the brink of extinction for the honeybee.
Yes. Now, the bees are a big topic of conversation right now. Everybody's trying to save the bee. There's a lot of misinformation out there. We are not discussing honeybees. We are talking about native bees. We have 6,400 different species of bees in California alone. Okay, I think about 4 of them make honey.
Only 4?
Yes. So I saw this. Most bees are solitary, and they live in the ground. Okay, that's why I have my bee collection over there.
Do you want me to pass this one to you?
Yes, sir. Please do. Because
for people that don't know or haven't seen quite yet, you brought quite a collection here.
So as you'll see,
you want to hold that sucker up just a tad bit more.
in this collection.
And this is just one box
this
of
is just
many.
one box. I don't even believe I have a honeybee in here because I'm so upset about people focusing. We're talking about saving the real bees. The vast majority of bees don't make honey. Okay, that's one of the biggest errors I've seen in this society. Even when it came to, I was at the mall the other day, and the gal that was checking me out, she had a depiction of a bumblebee on her forearm, and I told her, "Oh, I like identifying insects, especially when it comes to tattoos." And she says, "Oh, it's the Tennessee bumblebee," and I said, "I haven't heard of a Tennessee bumblebee."
Oh no!
And yeah, you know where this is going?
Yeah.
Okay, so there is an adult beverage company that makes called Jack Daniel's. They have a honey flavored whiskey. They call it Tennessee Honey. Their mascot for this beverage is a bumblebee. Bumblebees don't make honey. Okay. I respectfully didn't have time to explain that to her, and I don't want to be that jerk. I'm a nice guy, so I just thanked her politely for explaining that to me.
As you're gritting your teeth walking away.
Yeah, I'm like, that's the world I live in, where there's entire industries that have like mascots for honey flavored beverages with organisms that don't make honey. They make something called bee bread. It's similar to honey, but it's not honey. They use pollen. It's a mixture of pollen and honey, and it ferments into bee bread. It's amazing what bees do. I also have created this graphic. Notice there is no honeybees on this graphic. These are all native bees.
Less than 1% make honey.
Yes, exactly. And we've decoded, most of them don't even have a colony. Most of them are solitary. We actually decoded how bees communicate with each other. They do it with a dance.
Oh, I've heard about this.
Yeah, it's called the waggle dance. And that's a part of my graphic right here. I got it. It's very simple. It's amazing to me that we can watch them and know what they're saying to each other. So they walk in a half circle, and then they bisect the circle. And when they do that, walk that straight line, they're giving you a direction. And they waggle their abdomen back and forth when they're walking in that line. That frequency translates to a distance. So they're giving you a direction and a distance to something they want you to pay attention to. And they will repeat that over and over and over again so that the other individuals in the colony will
know where to go.
Check it out.
That's insane.
Check it out. Insects are also one of the things I want people to learn about with insects is how their eyes work. This is important because insects are the number one animal species that you're going to be interacting with throughout your life. If you go a day without interacting with an insect, I'd like to hear it. Because whether you know it or not, we're never farther than a couple feet from them. So my mother has eyes in the back of her head. Okay, a lot of school educators have eyes in the back of their head too. Insects have 3. They're called oculi. They're also known as simple eyes. These eyes have rods in them, but not cones. That means that they detect light, not color. There's 3 of them, and they're pointed directly at the sky. They are using the sun and the moon and the stars in the sky for navigation. It's like having a cell phone glued to the back of your head. They have a GPS system directly connected to their central nervous system. You cannot get an insect lost. It knows where it is on the planet at all times. And they not only use this for navigation, they use it for orientation. So light always means up and dark always means down. So if you watch a video of a moth circling a light at night, the oculi on the back of their head are always directly facing that light source.
Oh, so they're trying to orient against it.
Yeah.
As they're flying around.
They think that light source means up and dark means down. So they do not realize they're going in circles. They think they're flying in a straight line. So they will do that indefinitely until they drop out of the sky dead. It's like getting lost in the desert, you know?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So knowing that insects use high frequency light for navigation, I believe is the same reason that they don't use low frequency light, I believe, because fire is low frequency light. That prevents them from flying into fires. So if you don't want insects in your house, just change out the light bulb by your porch light to a low frequency light and you won't get flies in your house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If you understand how their vision works, now you can attach that information into all sorts of societal solutions. So if the worst thing you can do is shine a high frequency light up into the sky at night, because all the insects are going to fall out of the sky. You want to keep those lights pointed towards the ground with a cover over it so that they have a way to break the cycle of them circling around that light. If you don't like insects, just use a low frequency light. In that way, you can draw conclusions with, like, Las Vegas lives up to its name, Sin City. They just high frequency lights in every single direction. It's going to mess up everything in the sky. But Sedona, Arizona, the town I lived in, it actually has a low light. It's a light restricted city. It's one of the only light restricted cities in the United States, and every light they have is low frequency with a cover over it.
Is that specifically for insects?
That's actually because Sedona's really into stars. They want to see the stars at night, but it benefits insects, so I'm giving it to them.
Count it as a win.
It's a win. It's a win for bats. It might be a win for bats. Overall, it's better. It's a better way to coexist with our environment.
Light pollution is one of my big gripes, that we've essentially blinded ourselves to the night sky.
Oh, yeah.
I want to ask with the bee situation, because this was a couple of years ago when it seemed like it really ramped up. It seems like we've recovered the population.
Oh.
But what species of bee was that?
Okay, so most folks, the error they get is that they think that Save the Bees is about the European honeybee. It's the number one bee that we use to pollinate our crops with. The European honeybee is not native to the United States. It is the problem. It's the whole reason that bees need saving.
So it's an invasive species.
Yeah. Well, it's non-native. And it's outcompeting our native species. So that could be an argument. That's a part of it. But it's more that we're taking a species that's not from here. We are flooding the ecosystem with these pollinators that are outcompeting the native species. And then we're trucking them from town to town to pollinate monoculture farming plots. These are all things that are completely unnatural to the European honeybee. And that is why we have this is for many reasons why we have a problem with colony collapse disorder. It's where these colonies, we've been having a hard time pointing a finger to one conclusion or the other, but our one specific thing that's causing it or the other. But we totally know what's causing it. It's everything. We're doing everything backwards. We lose 25% of our European honeybee colonies that we're using in commercial crop pollination every year. Is not sustainable. The only reason we can maintain that industry is because we have to order new queens from Europe every year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And 25%, I'm assuming we're talking about millions of bees.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Every year. And I've seen it on TV. Why is this happening? And it could be because of the parasites that they're contracting. The parasites attack stressed colonies. That opens you up to disease. Stress opens you up to outside disease.
Good lesson for people there too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh man, I'm so healthy right now. I could tell you what, man. I could fight off COVID. I could fight off all of them right now. I could lick a doorknob. But that's how good I feel right now, talking about all this. So the bees, but why why we use them is because they are broadcast pollinators. They'll pollinate almost any plant. And there's so many of them that it doesn't matter that they're not specialized at it. They're not particularly good at whatever crop that they're working on. But because there's so many of them, it's just the most efficient way to do it.
It doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah, it's a
scale issue.
It's a blanket solution, just like insecticides seem like a blanket solution. Let's just kill everything on top of the one species that I don't want here. And my friend Kevin Wiener, he said something, a little gold nugget of information I'll never forget. He says he used to work at a pest control company, and people would ask him, what chemicals should I use to take care of XYZ species? And he says, the best chemical you can use is the chemical in your brain. Okay? The chemicals in your brain to think up, why is this species here? Why is it bothering me? He said the best tool that he used throughout his experience working in pest control was a caulking gun.
Sealing up the gaps.
Yeah. How did it get in your house? Maybe it's that gap around the door. You don't have to sterilize your yard, every part of your property to stop that species from getting to where it needs to be. How did it get there? Why is it there? Do you have food laying out? Does it have a food source that it's going after? There has to be a reason that it was either allowed access or is establishing itself in that location. So yeah, I love that. The best chemical solution to your insect problems is the chemicals in your brain. Think about what's really the root cause of this. Is it actually helping me? Now Kevin loves arachnids, spiders. I stop at 6 legs. Okay. I say anything more than 6 legs scares me, and anything less than 6 legs bores me. I love 6 legs. Okay. Kevin crosses the line. He loves spiders too. And he's right. My fear of spiders is irrational. I understand that, I like understanding what things I should be worried about and what things I shouldn't be worried about. And because that, I'm so much more relaxed when I'm outside. And I wish I could give other people the vision too, because there's not a lot you really got to worry about. Most of your fears and anxieties are all made up in your head, and they're just perpetuating themselves. They don't have any true basis. I'm not afraid. I've only been stung twice in my whole life, and both times I knew I was in the wrong, and I was being forced into a situation I didn't want to be. I had to work on a cell phone tower that was covered in wasps.
Ooh.
I didn't want to do it. My foreman made me do it.
And you got stung.
I did. Yep, I did. And I told him that's exactly what's going to happen if I go on that tower right now, because these ground wasps, they like to fight over elevated territories just for dominance. I was working on a tower in Davis, California, and it's completely flat. This tower at the hottest part of the day, thousands of wasps, they are not from the same colony. This is a battle arena, okay? They are fighting for dominance currently. So as I'm climbing this tower, I can see them taking each other out in dogfights all around me, and it is not a good situation. And he's sitting there wanting me to use power tools, okay? Vibrations and loud noises on a battlefield of wasps.
Not a good idea.
Yeah. So we'll just say that didn't end well.
Shocker. Who would have thought that?
You know what? You can't say no to the foreman. Though.
Yeah, they don't really like that.
I
just wish he would have been the one going up there that day.
Yeah, it was a catch-22 for me. But so that's not my fault. Other than that, every single time when I'm out collecting, if I allow an insect to escape, 100% of the time they take it. They don't have a vendetta. It's not beneficial to them. They have no ego like people have. Okay. So unless you are a direct threat to, they are very altruistic organisms. They believe in the survival of the species versus the individual. So they will fight and lay down their lives if they think that it will benefit the species as a whole. But I haven't really witnessed too much selfishness when it comes to insects, which is a whole study in and of itself. It's fascinating.
Have they stabilized the collapse then of the bees that they were worried about? These no. So it's still. I feel like the
a lot of
outspokenness has kind of died down a little bit over the past few years, but maybe that's just.
Well, that's kind of a good thing, because when we were at the peak of it, I remember I saw Gwyneth Paltrow on TV, and she said, "Save the bees." And she had a picture of a honeycomb with an image of a giant European honeybee on it. And all she was saying in that PSA is, "I like honey." Okay? The association with the Save the Bees campaign and people's association with honey production is incorrect. The bees that we want to save, they're typically solitary. They're in the ground, and they are all sorts of funny shapes and sizes that you don't associate a honeybee with. Okay, a lot of people are scared of those different shapes because they don't recognize them, and that's healthy. But those are the bees we're talking about. They're very specialized to individual plants. They're typically like 200 to 300 times more efficient at pollinating specific plants than a European honeybee would, but because their population size isn't as prevalent, expansive, you can just carpet bomb them with European honeybees. Here, if you do insist on honey production and you want to be a part of Save the Bees, the middle ground there is just make sure it's a Western honeybee. Okay, the Western honeybees, they don't produce as much honey as the European honeybees do, but it's the correct way. You know, it's living here, you're going to have less problems. You only have problems with maintaining a population when you're trying to do it outside of its natural ecosystem, which is why we're having problems with the European honeybee. If you're just trying to take something and house it in the environment it's already meant to be housed in, you're going to find a lot more success. You're going to be a lot happier with it. You're not going to see all those problems. So yes, the meeting people in the middle with this is going. If you need a honey producing species, choose a Western honeybee, please, over a European honeybee. And if you want to be a part of, if you want to be a real hero, these bees live in holes in the ground. Okay, the easiest thing you can do is collect a bundle of wooden, for lack of a better word, tubes. Okay, I've seen like really cheap versions of these bee hotels at Target. They got tubes the size of silver dollars. These bees aren't that big. They're real small. They need to be much smaller than that. If you're blessed enough to have land in a rural, and you have a rural piece of land, the easiest way you can support native bee populations, take a drill to a stump or one of those laid down trees, just drill holes in it. And bees will populate that specific hole. You'll see they'll go into it, they'll lay eggs, they'll collect pollen, stuff it all in there with their babies, and they'll seal it over with a little bit of mud when they're done with it. And you'll be supporting the native bee population. So bee hotels, which is a bundle of tubes that are bee sizes, not too big. And you'll be helping out the native bee population. That is Save the Bees. That's Save the Bees. Thank you for letting me say that.
Absolutely.
Because it's not quick, it's not catchy, it's not flashy. That's
and it's not talked about.
It's not talked about. No, yeah. So that is the true Save the Bees. That's what we're discussing. And these are the errors that I see everywhere. I was just at the Sequoia Park Zoo yesterday my folks flew in to see me for Christmas. My dad wanted to check out our new redwood walkway.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say the redwood Christmas tree thing they've done up over there.
Oh, well, that was nice too. But the walkway, the skywalk.
Better, yeah.
The skywalk, great. Everybody should check that out. Definitely, I'm glad that's something that it's not so much gimmicky or gotcha. I actually enjoy it very much. I saw a sculpture of a butterfly drinking nectar out of a flower made out of rebar, and the legs were attached to the abdomen, and it only had 2 body parts. And I was like, the zoo? So I'm going to be going back to the zoo with my card. I'm going to see if I can't start being the change.
Just have a conversation.
Just to open up a dialogue.
Yeah.
I've definitely seen, there's an elementary school on North Jetty. I think it's Peninsula Elementary School. Their mascot is a bee with 6 wings on it. Very interesting. I don't know any insect species that has 6 wings on it. So one of the major lessons I like people to walk away from my talks with, because we are interacting with people or with insects on a regular basis. So these are my flies. Okay, I collected everything here from Humboldt County. Can you please count for me? How many wings does a fly have?
Oh, it looks like 6.
6?
No.
Oh, man.
You got 2 there.
Show me which one. That would be a really cool fly. You'd be making discoveries.
That's the one
right
the schools got, except it's a bee form.
Yeah.
And all of these are from Humboldt County. Your whole collection here.
Everything that I brought here on this table, except for Jeffrey, the tarantula, is from Humboldt County, yes.
What portion of this is your total collection? Like how many, what is the size of is this your whole collection that you have, or is there more that you have at home from outside areas?
I have more. I have dream species on my wall at home. Okay. I'm blessed because we have a very exceptionally talented frame artist in Eureka here. She runs the Art Center Frame Shop. Her name's Monica. She's just across the street from the Department of Fish and Wildlife in Old Town, Eureka. She has blessed me with side projects where I gave her a list of my dream species of insects, and I told her I will pay any amount of money for you to custom frame my dream species. That's just something you don't find everywhere. And I gave her the short list, and she got me some of my most sought after species from around the world. So very special. Have you ever heard of I'll leave that for a different conversation. We're talking about Humboldt species today. So these flies, there's only one answer, okay? For all flies, how many wings does a fly have?
2.
It is indeed 2.
Unfortunately, not 6. But we're close.
Folks always, and they look.
Does that stump
hard.
people?
Oh, well, they think they take their time.
They
take their time.
They think it's a trick question.
Constantly. So, and once again, same question. These are our wasp species here in Humboldt County, and here are some of our bee species in Humboldt County. There's only one answer. How many wings do bees and wasps have?
2. These ones look like, when they're split, so you have one here, this red one that I'm looking at, that's still one wing, right? But it's split slightly, or that's a separate wing?
Okay, now that's where you made an error. That's okay. You believe it's split, but it's not. Those are individual wings. So now that you know that, it's not a split, it's natural, it's meant to be that way. Some individuals have their wings spread better than others. How many wings do they have?
4.
Yes.
But do some have 2?
No.
They all have 4.
They all have 4. Now, how it tricks you, because you're giving me the time to explain this. Usually I'm
in a rush a little bit.
Condensed for time. The hind wings and the forewings, okay, there is a singular row of hairs that work like Velcro. So they can Velcro their hind wings and their forewings when they want it to act as an individual appendage. And then they can also undo it. They, in actuality, have 4 wings. Sometimes they're Velcroed together by that line of hairs. And that's where you're thinking like it's a split or something. Yeah, because
some of them, it looks like it's a single wing, but there's maybe a slight riff going between them. And then some of them, obviously, it's more pronounced that there's 4, it's not a split. It's actually a separate pair of wings on there.
Yeah. So you could be, if it's in the field, when you only get a quick glance at it,
you might think, oh.
You might just, it makes you look just a little bit closer at it.
Well, it helps having them stationary like this where you can actually get up in person.
Yeah, exactly. And how amazing is this that I can bring this in and show you what our ecosystem looks like?
How many people have this opportunity where they can actually sit down and look over these insect species?
Everybody in our community has this opportunity because I'm here. Okay.
Shout out.
That is what I'm doing. That is exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing. I can't believe I'm in a position to say that if I don't do this, nobody will. Because I've just lived out my whole life watching this void of knowledge, and I'm finally doing something about it. And I've had so much success. It's just as fast as my feet can take me off the ground, is as fast as I'm moving. So you might notice with a lot of these fly species that have 2 wings, a lot of them look like bees. And when you're having your picnic, if they fly by you.
These are still fly species.
Yeah. So now that you know that.
The yellow and black stripe. Now
that you know all of these flies that are trying to look like bees, they all have 2 wings. That is
some of them do look like bees. We're talking vibrant
absolutely.
Black and yellow.
Oh, you want
that if you caught them at a glimpse, you say, oh, there's a bee.
Absolutely. Now, there is one box. No, okay. This is amazing. This is the correct box, actually. So that's how you tell the difference in between a fly and a bee.
You're looking at the wings.
Just count the wings real quick. I know that. So whenever I'm at a picnic or if I have company outside, I know what's around us. I know what to be afraid of, what not to be afraid of. And that's a skill that I like to pass on to anybody that allows me the time.
And I would have never thought of that. I've never looked at the wings. I've always looked at visually, what does it look like?
Yeah. How much of a benefit is that going to be throughout your life for me telling you for 2 minutes? Just give me 2 minutes. I'm going to impact your life. I'm going to make you a lot less scared of the world around you.
What you think you're seeing is not what you might be actually seeing.
So now you know how their vision works. So if you're out camping and you have a high frequency light and you're like, oh, all these bugs, man, get them off me. Change the light to a low frequency light. Boom, they're gone. It's not a simple solution just because now you know how an insect works. Now you can manipulate the world around you to live with them better, okay? Something's buzzing around me. It's really making me, I'm bothered. I don't know what it is, but I know it has 2 wings. Oh, it's a fly.
We're going to be okay.
Yeah, we're going to be all right, Now, there are some exceptional species that I've discovered. I invite you to check this one out right here. That is called a Rocky Mountain Clear Wing Moth. That is, I call it a bumblebee moth because that's exactly what it's doing. And when I found it, it was weaving in and out of the bumblebees in the flower bush, hanging out and taking cover with them so nothing would bother it. It is an exceptional
that's insane.
Species to explain defensive coloration and manipulation. Now that one's really cool. I like that. That was the first time I saw that species outside of a book. Now one that is even more unique is this one. So sorry. If you see my hands shake, I actually have benign essential tremors.
Oh, wow.
Which is ironic since I'm spreading these insects.
And all of these are on needles.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I figured we were both being very careful not to stab each other.
Right. That one actually originates from the Middle East. but it has naturalized itself in America to the point where its common name is now the American hornet moth. That is a species of moth that is pretending to be a hornet. And no matter how long I let people hold it, they are still convinced that they
might get
stung. Now, if you get stung by something, it's female. Only females can sting you. That's a modified female organ. So a female lays eggs with something called an ovipositor. Now, in a lot of species, that ovipositor is modified to inject venom, and that's when you got a stinger. Males don't have that.
What about with wasps where they bite? Is that male and female?
Yeah,
that's both. Okay.
All insects can bite. They all have not all insects can bite you the way you're thinking of. But
they
yes,
can bite you, but it doesn't have that same pain threshold.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to be injecting any venom that's going to affect you in an additional way.
I would definitely think that this was a wasp if this was just flying around, without a doubt.
And that's the kind of thing.
I mean, the wings kind of give it away, but
one's pretty.
How are you going to look at that and catch the wings and say, okay, it might be a moth?
And that is why I was nerding out so bad when I actually found that deceased on the riverbank. And I said, no way. Nobody else in this world would know what I was looking at except for me. And I said, no way. And wrapped it up right away. And I immediately started showing it off to the world because it needs to be seen.
Now, do you spray these with anything to prevent decay, or do insects not decay in the same way that I'm thinking, like with a mammal?
The problem is they don't fossilize because they don't have any bones. Their exoskeleton's made of chitin.
It's the same thing with birds, right?
No, birds have bones.
Birds, yeah, but isn't it, they're not necessarily hollow, but they're so light that it's hard for them to fossilize?
I imagine so, because they have hollow bones, so that would make it harder. These don't have any bones at all. These actually have an exoskeleton made out of chitin, which is similar to what not exactly the same, but very similar to what our fingernails are made out of. So it makes it hard for us to have a fossil record of these organisms.
So how long will they last like this? Indefinitely?
Now, because I've done this correctly, they'll last as long as I take care of them, as good as I take care of them. I saw a collection in the parks that was from 1960. And the only damage to it was from being jostled around. They will preserve as long as you put them in a sealed container, okay? As long as they're fully dried out and you keep them in a sealed container. A lot of people are worried about climate control, stuff like that. There's additional insurances you can take to increase the longevity of them. But I did absolutely nothing to these organisms other than to let them dry out naturally in the position that I wanted them to stay in. I didn't spray them with glue, nothing like that. There's nothing unnatural about what I have here. I didn't use any chemicals or sprays or anything like that. It is also important to understand that insects are cold-blooded. A part of their anatomy that is a critical component of information I like to share with people, because in order to do what I do humanely, it's good to understand your subject. So what is the most humane way to euthanize an insect? I usually ask that question when people ask me if I did euthanize these insects. I said I did. But do you know how to do that in the most ethical way possible? And they said, no. I said, well, it's important to understand that these are cold-blooded organisms. Now, they have a different type of blood. I'm oversimplifying it, but this is the gist of it. So just like snakes and turtles, when they get cold, they go to sleep. So if you want an insect to calm down so you can analyze it closer or whatever, you put it in the refrigerator. It's going to calm down real quick. And if you want it to go to sleep, you put it in the refrigerator. If you want it to go to sleep forever, you put it in the freezer. They just naturally go to sleep. Unless you're a woolly bear caterpillar. Because there's, like I said, super organisms out there. That organism can replace its blood with an antifreeze and has known to live up to 7 years in its larval stage. Being frozen alive. That's a whole conversation about being frozen alive and why it's bad. I explain that to kids. You're not going to wake up like in the cartoons.
Yeah, it's not going to work the same for you. Don't try it.
Nah. Yeah. It's not how we're going to preserve ourselves forever.
So when you're in the field collecting them, do you put them in an ice chest? Pull them down?
That is the best way, the absolute best way. If it is a particularly fragile species, keeping them in a container. Now, keeping them cool like that is the best way possible. There's also, you can create what is known as a kill jar. Okay. Insects, why insects are small is this comes into what I'm talking about with this kill jar. Insects don't have lungs like we do. They can't increase their respiration when they exert themselves. So you can wrap a plastic bag around their head and they'll be fine. You can't choke an insect. That tube only goes down into their stomach. What they have are holes in the sides of their body called sphericals. And those holes are directly connected to their veins, which diffuse oxygen into their bodies. Now, the best example of explaining this is it's like breathing through a straw. If I gave you a 1-inch straw right now and told you to breathe through it, easy. Now, if I gave you a 7-foot straw, okay, and told you to breathe through it, a little bit harder, right? Okay, that is the same reason why insects are small, because they rely on diffusion of oxygen into their bloodstream. They can't increase that or decrease that. They are limited in size to how much oxygen is in the atmosphere. That's why these specimens we have from millions and millions of years ago, back when there was more oxygen in the environment, they were huge. The first known flying organisms on this planet, when I was a kid, used to thought it was a pterodactyl. So I came up with this graphic. Right here, okay? I always thought of dinosaurs. Kids are into dinosaurs, right? So pterodactyls, I always thought that was like, got to be right there at the beginning. Nah, it's dragonflies.
Yeah, we were talking about this off air before we started, and that was shocking to me that dragonflies are older than dinosaurs.
Yeah, insects are older than dinosaurs, and they're still here. Okay, this is the things about the world I live in that I wish everybody else could experience with me, and I'm trying to bring everybody else along with the ride right now. Okay, so dragonflies, first known organisms to conquer flight. Insects number 1. Doesn't that make sense? They have such a high turnover rate with their populations. They can modify and evolve and change and adapt to environments so quickly. Wouldn't it make sense that they would be the first ones to conquer flight? And the argument for why they might have been the first ones on land is because of their exoskeleton. Their exoskeleton traps their moisture inside their bodies. It's like they're wearing spacesuits. They're protected from the environment. Our skin weeps moisture throughout the day. We have to continually have a water source. They're able to retain the water within their bodies a lot better than other organisms. So it's like they're having a spacesuit, which why diatomaceous earth works as a insecticide.
Diatomaceous earth being...
A diatomaceous earth is made out of skeletons of micro aquatic invertebrates, basically crushed up bones. It's very, very jagged. It's almost like fiberglass, but without the repercussions for us. It's too small for us to make an impact on us. You can even eat the stuff, but for insects, since they're living in these spacesuits, what it does is when they crawl over it, is it gives them little cuts in their exoskeleton, and they weep out all the moisture from the inside of their body, and they turn into jerky. No chemicals necessary. You just put a line of that in front of, if you can't fix it with a caulking gun, you put down a line of diatomaceous earth. And when they walk across it, you're going to puncture their spacesuit.
And they're just going to dry out.
They're just going to dry out. Yeah. There's all sorts. In Kevin Wiener, I highly recommend you discuss this with him as well. He says there's a few things you want to be worried about. You definitely want to read the label on it. If it's mishandled, it can be, he said something, I don't want to misquote him, so I'll let him speak on it. He has more expertise when it comes to insect management companies than I do. So, but I'm a fan of diatomaceous earth. He has a few things he says you should know before using it, but I still think that it is an excellent product that you should consider when thinking about stuff you can use around your house.
How do you use it?
I haven't had a need to use diatomaceous earth. I'm very efficient with the way I keep insects under control in my living space. One of them, whenever I have ants, I can take care of ants so fast. And a lot of folks get this wrong. If they see ants in their house, they immediately start smashing them or spray them with a Raid. Okay, so ants are a colonizing society. If you don't, it's like, you need to cut the head off the society. So when you see the ants, that's great. Especially if it's in a manageable spot. Okay. If it's, along the line where your carpet meets your wall, behind your couch, there's a trail of ants. Perfect. Okay. Lay down bait for them. There's a very basic, I forget what's in it, but it's in all ant insecticides. But you lay out the bait for them, and they will bring that back to the queen. Now, in the short term, as soon as they find its food source, they're going to tell the rest of the colony to come out of the wall. Yeah, and that's what people like. They can't tolerate it, but you got to tolerate it, because on day one, you're going to get hundreds of ants. Okay, don't touch them. They're working. That's good. They're taking the bait. And the next day, you're going to notice that they're disorganized. All of a sudden, these hundreds of ants are all wandering in different directions, and they're all looking kind of confused. That's because you just chopped the head off. You got the queen. And then in a week, they're gone. Easy. Every time. I've taken care of ants every single time that they've come into my living space. Super simple. Just don't take out the workers. You're not going to win. And the other way is with gnats. Okay, gnats, especially if, like, I love bananas. If you keep bananas for too long, you start getting fruit flies, gnats. I use a cup of vinegar. They love vinegar. They cannot ignore it. With a drop of dish soap in it, so it breaks the surface tension of the water, so they can't walk along if they touch the liquid, they'll immediately submerge. With cellophane wrap over the top of that glass, and poke holes in it, so that I also like to inject cut pieces of straw so that they have a tube to come through, and then it makes it hard for them to escape. Just put that by your fruit dish. Hundreds of them. It depends on how bad your problem is, but within a day or two, and none of that's chemical. None of that's chemical. I don't have to worry about, a dog coming in, finding my cup of vinegar. Ants, possibly a different situation. You want to be kind of careful with laying out toxic substances where it could be accessed by children and stuff like that. So the ants is a little bit, but there's ways to cover wherever you've applied whatever you choose to, whatever your choice is. But yeah, my life, being me, insects don't bother me at all. Spiders in your house, although I don't like spiders in particular, I know the ones that are particularly venomous. Why I don't like spiders, when I was asked. I always get asked, especially when I worked at the resort in Sedona, are there any like really venomous spiders in this area? I said, absolutely. That question's always going to be yes, okay? Because there's no such thing as a non-venomous spider. None of them have teeth. They all have fangs. They all eat the same way. You won't see a spider chewing its food. They all inject the venom and suck it out using different species-specific toxins. And a big misconception about tarantulas is that tarantulas are not venomous. That's a misconception. Tarantulas are one of the only insects, one of the only spider or groups of spiders that can withhold their venom. So when they bite something they don't intend to feed on as a defense, biting to defend themselves, it could just be a physical wound, not a venomous wound. I had a gentleman that raised tarantulas come to my show and confirmed that, and he showed me his arm, and it was covered in vampire marks, man.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, so...
good on spiders.
The other one is like, oh yeah, tarantulas can't bite you. They absolutely can. I see you could visually see them right there. They're capable. They're apprehensive. They don't want to. And that's something that my friend Kevin Wiener discusses a lot. He's trying to get people to be less afraid of arachnids. It's very difficult to get a spider to actually bite you. You typically have to pinch it in a situation where it can't escape and it feels like it's its last resort. Obviously, we are thousands of times bigger than them, so they're trying to escape. In a fight, we're gonna win. They know it. We know it. They know it. So the last thing they want to do is draw more attention to themselves. They'd rather just run,
get away.
Yeah, exactly. So there's just so much to discuss. What is it that interests you?
I was just interested in you. I think you were the interest that brought this all along, Our introduction, my mom works at a school and you went and presented there, and she came home that night and told me, she was like, you just got to bring this guy on. He is so passionate about this and it's all about insects. And I was like, he's just talking about insects? She's like, yeah, but it's incredibly fascinating. He was just going on and I couldn't believe it. And so I was like, I gotta hear what this guy's about.
Like I said, I live in a world that I think is absolutely nuts. You guys are, this is fascinating. There's little super organisms all around our toes at all times. And everybody just is terrified. It is a subject currently in our society, as much as in our adult society, we're a little bit more accepting. Because we're elders. We know better. We've had the experience. But my childhood experience is that this is a child's subject, and it's a subject of ridicule.
Insects.
Yeah, insects. Ooh. Bugs.
Why are you playing with bugs?
Why are you playing with those bugs? Put that away. Don't bring that in the house. Oh, man, my mom's... I praise my mom's patience with me, okay? Because she tolerated me my whole life, bringing things in the house, and I think she got used to it a little bit, but to this day, it's not for her. And it's not an interest that people tend to retain. And I feel like that's a societal pressure on younger populations to let that go. Let them go. Grow up. What does that mean?
Stop digging in the dirt.
Yeah, stop. That's not important. That's not right. This is the world we live in. Why? This is 80% of the animal kingdom. Why are we gonna? How do you outgrow our ecosystem? Lose interest in the world around us? It makes no sense. And so I didn't. I mean, ever since the first time I saw one crawl across the earth. Well,
you were hooked.
Why is that? That is so much different than everything else. What is it doing down there? Let me watch it. What? The beetle, I found this beetle. Crazy looking guy right here. That guy just wanted sticks. He eats sticks.
What kind of beetle is that?
This is a Ponderosa pine boring beetle. Okay. This is native to our area. I found this one specifically in Lewiston, but since its population, it does have a population in Humboldt. I keep it because it's a Humboldt species. It eats wood and turns it into protein. If you don't like insects, that's their superpower. They're taking unusable resources and turning it into a usable resource for the populations you do like. Everybody that loves birds. Everybody loves birds. Guess what birds eat? Okay? Now, can a bird eat a stick? I've never seen a bird eat a stick before, but my guy here, okay, he's on it. He's turning that stick into something that's going to get you some really pretty birds. And for 3 weeks, I tried to get him to eat. I tried to give him honey. I tried to give him like leaves, something. He just wanted his sticks. How? How do you do that?
I think the problem is most people don't think about insects until they have a problem with them. And the bigger the problem, the stronger that feeling is. You think mosquitoes, flies, fruit flies, cockroaches,
Of course. Those are the ones that get your attention, right? And so you'll notice I try to keep the specimens that I bring out to inspire people. I like them to be stimulating in some way, either their backstory or the way they look, something unique about them that I like to keep in there. If I don't pad my collection, my intention was never to get the most. I wanted to have the most inspirational collection, not the most species. So I don't have like a crane fly in here. Everybody's seen hundreds of dead crane flies in their house along the windowsills. They look like very lengthy legs, longer bodies. Some people call them mosquito eaters. I don't have that in there. I haven't put any cockroaches in there, but they do belong in there. Cockroaches are actually quite fascinating.
I didn't know that a mosquito eater was a fly.
Well, yeah. I would have to, no, I don't know what family they exactly fall into. I think it might be, but I'll get back to you on that one. That'll
be round 2. We'll do that.
Let me just look at my book real quick. I have the capacity right here to do that, but I'm gonna
leave a little mystery there.
Yeah. So yeah, managing insect populations, understanding them a little bit better so that we don't live our life always constantly
in fear.
Like, oh, that's disgusting. Actually, they're actually really clean. They're actually a really essential food source throughout history. 80% of world civilizations have utilized insects as a protein source. Do you realize that we are the minority? Okay? The only reason that society sees consuming insects the way they do is because back in the colonial era, when Europeans sailed over the Atlantic Ocean, they were discovering the new Americas. They completely got that wrong. They saw all these new societies, cultures, consuming insects. And how did they treat them? How did they visualize these new cultures? What do you know about history about white men coming across?
Yeah, they weren't the biggest fans.
No, exactly. They said these people are barbaric. They're uncivilized. Savages, exactly. And so they associated that with the consumption of insects. That was a very narrow-minded, closed-minded thing to think. And I would like to believe that our society is a little bit more mature now, okay? We've had some time to reflect on it, look back on our mistakes. This is one of them that I believe we're going to have to overcome. And I'm ready to lead the charge. If you think about your food too much, everything's going to disgust you.
That's a big hill to overcome, though. Get people to start eating bugs.
I can do it.
Do you eat bugs?
I have no problem with it. It's a protein source.
What do you eat?
It's natural.
What's your go-to source?
Okay, it's going to definitely, I don't have a I don't consume insects on a regular basis because I don't have access to the volume I would need to make it a regular part of my diet.
You have to be eating a lot of crickets.
Yeah. If I had a sustainable protein store, which is what we're trying to find, I believe beef, there's a carbon investment to everything we eat. Okay. I think beef's like we get one part of beef for 800 parts of carbon. I think chicken's about 200. Insects is about 1 to 3, 1 to 2. It's so close to input to output that this is a part of climate change. This is a part of how we are going to make this world a better place. And I believe that we're out of practice. I believe that our society needs a little bit more practice using them as an ingredient. I totally believe that. But there is nothing unnatural about consuming insects.
Does the economy of that carbon input to output, does that change with scale? Right, if you're thinking 1 cow, that's going to feed a family of 4 for a while, versus how many crickets would you need to eat?
No. Okay, you're thinking, no, this is one part output. So if you have, and that's whatever measurement you want, okay? 1 steak. We'll just say a unit is a steak's worth. A steak, half a pound. So half a pound would be 1 unit. You need 800. So that would be 400 pounds of carbon investment, carbon waste to create that half pound of beef that you're eating. You have a 400-pound carbon investment that you're putting on to the environment so that you can have that piece of meat. When it comes to insects, that's like a 1 to 3.
For that same size?
Yes.
Or protein.
So let's say a half pound insect burger. Okay. You would make it out of grubs. Right now, in Asia, they're using the black soldier flies, and they eat them like chips.
Really?
Just like chips.
How big are they?
Oh, they're the size of flies. And so I've read into it. It's the most sustainable way to make protein. Now, this is the beginning ages of our society awakening to this idea that's been around forever. So from my perspective of it is like we're catching up. But to people that are unfamiliar, it might be new to them. That's why I'm trying to say it's not new. But I forget exactly what Asian country this is. I apologize because it is quite impressive. The guy that's doing it is using it for animal feed. So it is for human consumption also, but he's making a more sustainable animal feed. So then you can translate that to chickens and make the impact of your chicken feed a smaller carbon footprint of what you're feeding them. And it's more nutritious for the chicken. And that means that it's more nutritious for us. It's overall significantly more sustainable than the way we're currently doing things. There are applications for consumption of insects across the board. It's cheaper. It's more effective. It's more nutritious. Specifically, the highest protein source you can get is Hercules beetle grub. I would love to have Hercules beetle grub. Grub versions, the larval versions of insects is what I've learned is a better form to consume them in before they fully develop their exoskeleton. Because you don't get I've heard you don't get the satisfying crunch because it's not bone. It's like eating fingernails. So yeah, not great. Yeah, not great. That's part of the practice thing I'm saying we need.
I think it's in Asia. It might be China specifically that they have these giant cricket farms. Have you heard anything about that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure if the application for that is specifically human consumption yet, but
you can raise crickets, no problem. You can raise, oh man, I had pets growing up. Crickets always get loose. If crickets is a food source for your pets, You're just going to have to accept the fact.
Deal with it.
Yeah, they got soft bodies. They can crawl into the smallest, they can compress themselves because remember, it's chitin, not bone, so they can squish right into those cracks, man. It doesn't matter how careful you are. They always manage to escape. And that is an example of how well they can survive. Okay, you have a contained colony of organisms and you tell your mom, I'm going to be so careful. I'm not going to let a single one escape. You know that's a lie.
I had them get out in my mom's car one time.
Out, man.
And she was finding crickets for weeks. Dead crickets popping up.
Yeah. So got to bait them out. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah, we just waited them out. That was way worse.
Yeah. So there's a lot to discuss. I have nothing against consuming insects. I don't think it's wrong. I actually think that it might actually catch on as kind of like a protein. I could see it being a protein substitute for people that work out.
I could see it being a protein powder for sure.
Mm-hmm. Especially because the vitamins, minerals you get from it. You're going to be healthier than other people, but we do have to get over
the stigma
the societal stigma for sure.
Yeah, that'll be a hurdle. But it's not like
I'm working on it. It's education is the answer, man. Enlightening people, and that's on the backside of my card. I'm enriching lives through the understanding of insects. Understanding the world around you is such an empowering feeling. It's not just that you know the information. When you truly understand, when you get to that level, it just feels good. It just feels good to go outside. And for instance, when I was hired on with the parks, I said, hey, I could tell you, you're not allowed to have your dogs on the trails or anything in a state park. You're only allowed to keep them in the camp area. I said, hey, I could tell you if people are following your dog policy or not. The insects will snitch on them. They'll tell me. So I have that bow fly. Looks just like the screw fly I was telling you about, minus the stripes, really metallic blue and green. People with dogs will know that this is in your house all the time. Most common type of fly. You won't find that in the woods. That's because that fly is specifically attracted to domesticated dog feces. So if I see that fly, it means somebody hasn't been picking up after their dog.
Why domesticated dog feces specifically?
Because domesticated dogs don't have a different diet than what animals typically eat in the wild. And that makes what comes out the back end completely different. That is also a reason why you're not allowed to bring your dogs into state parks, because when they defecate, they are introducing nutrients that did not originate from the park.
All that processed dog food.
All that processed dog food is coming out as a different product than what a wild animal is giving back.
I think there's parallels there for people too.
Yeah. So that's a big takeaway for what you should and shouldn't introduce into an ecosystem. I know there's parallels with that throughout the year. I heard something about like, don't leave your pumpkins out there in ecosystems that don't have pumpkins. A lot of people believe, I saw it was like a Facebook fad where everybody says, you know, that the peach pit that you have or whatever produce you have from the grocery store, just throw that out the window. Like, you know, unless that's a native plant species growing in your area, as much as your heart's in the right place, don't plant something if you don't know if it's from here, because it's the opposite. You're contributing to the issue there. And so if the produce you're getting from your store doesn't naturally grow in your area, don't do that.
Throw it away.
Yeah, throw it away. Don't spread seeds unless it's a native plant. Griff Griffith, the guy that mentored me, he calls those plastic plants. Don't plant plastic plants. Non-native plants that don't contribute anything to the environment, they just look appealing for whatever reason to you. Just know that plant is only there for you to look at specifically as an individual because it's not doing anything for anybody else. And that's my favorite part about how can we live better. And there's a million insect species. There's a million options. You gotta like one of them, okay? And when you own land, you have a responsibility, and not a responsibility, an opportunity to invite whatever species appeals to you to that space. Just find its host plant. Insects find a way. They will find the host plant, man. Just like the ants will find your peanut butter and jelly sandwich, they will find that plant. They will come. Insects are exceptional at finding their host plant. And it's just so much fun to me. I don't know why people wouldn't want to take part. Yeah. Learn about the world you live in. What grows here? What's my favorite? Butterflies are easy. You know, everybody loves butterflies. What's its host plant? You know, here we got the tiger swallowtails, and we have several species. It just depends. I highly encourage you to follow that interest. Find the species. Use Seek. Use iNaturalist. And find your species, find the host planet, and watch it come into your living space. And it's such, Americans like immediate feedback, okay? Insects is as immediate as you can get. They're the first step right after planting the plant, okay? You're going to get it in your first season. You don't have to wait for that to build up, but it will, because not only are those insects going to come, the beautiful birds are going to come, and then, you know, the birds are going to invite other wildlife potentially. So, you know, the bunnies and all that. It depends. It's all about interacting with the world and making it the right space for you. But the answer is always going to be plant native. Plant native. You'll find the species you're looking for.
Well, I think that's great. That's a great reason why you're out there, is because you're kind of helping people see the beautiful side of this world that we're all already in.
Yeah.
And this, you know, they kind of get glossed by because they're smaller and you're not thinking about them on the daily, but we're all living in the same world. We're all here together. We might as well get along.
Yeah. And these things are fascinating, man. This is the best part about our ecosystem. People are glancing over them because it's kid stuff. You know, you're supposed to grow out of it. What are you still doing, poking around there? I got to tell you, I've had the cops called on me quite a few times as an adult poking around in the bushes, or when, like, for instance, I'm doing a nighttime blacklight survey, which is very simple. We discussed insect vision, how they're attracted to high frequency lights. That is why your bug zappers have a black light surrounded by an electrified cage. Ultraviolet light is an extremely high frequency light, so insects are going to be attracted to it. Just take away the electrified cage and put a white sheet behind that black light, and insects are going to fly into that sheet and hang on to it for once they get tired of flying around. Make it the first thing they can land on, and they're gonna stay on that sheet, and you can see what lives around your world. I was doing that down by the Mad River Bridge a few years ago, and I had a policeman show up and say, you know, I'm on the Hammond Trail. It's kind of notoriously bad. And he's like, and I said, before you say anything, I already know. Okay. I said, I understand. I'm glad that you're here and you're concerned and you're checking in on your community. I'm weird. I'm not dangerous. Okay. I like insects. He goes, oh, and I go, I'm pretty much the only one, so don't worry about this becoming like a thing. But yeah, I'm looking for bugs. Okay, I'm just looking at the bugs.
He probably doesn't get that very often.
No, he doesn't. Yeah. Not on the Hammond Trail. Not on the Hammond.
I don't think anywhere.
Yeah, he's like, so what's all this black light stuff? You know, in our community. I'm like, no, it's not like that. I get it. I mean, I do blend in. I do love Humboldt County because of that. Because they are more accepting here in our the little culture world that we have here, much more accepting to outside views than the outside world. And I think that's a big part of why I found so much success with what I do here in Humboldt County. And that's going to be a big barrier for when I transition, hopefully in the future, to having a wider audience, you know. When I go into cities and suburbs, it's going to be a lot harder to break into people because they don't interact with the natural world as much as we do. A lot of their world is covered in concrete. And, you know, the plants that they do see were intentionally planted there. They may or may not be native. So because they aren't around the natural world on a day-to-day basis, when they do see it, they are more apprehensive than people in our community, where we have access to beautiful forests and oceanscapes and beaches. We have so many ecosystems here to explore. I love it to death. I've sacrificed a lot to live here, and I would do it again 1,000 times over.
Sacrificed a lot in terms of opportunities that you might have in a bigger area.
I did. I was working on cell phone towers, making a good paycheck for 3.5 years. And a part of me was doing that and realizing that a part of me was fulfilled by making money, but it wasn't a wholesome satisfaction. I was like, yeah, making money's great. You know, it does make you, you know, the comforts of being stable is great. But I always felt like I was working towards moving back to Humboldt. I left. I knew it was a mistake. I did it so that I could better myself and come back a more competitive person, because the market here, the job market in Humboldt County is
abysmal.
Yeah, exactly. And so I came back and I said, you know what? I've been working on towers long enough. I could go back to Humboldt. I can find somebody. I'm not nobody now. I could figure it out. I will dig ditches for Danco to live on the beach. And that's what I did. I came back. I got picked up. I worked for several of the big names, you know, Danco, Kernan Construction. Then I worked for a couple of smaller names, building houses. And I was doing that because instead of continuing on a different path, making more money, because I wanted to find my way here. And I'm so glad that I did, because I'm sitting in front of you right now and I'm smiling and I'm beaming and I'm changing lives in ways that is so satisfying to me. I can't believe I'm in this position right now. It's great life now. I had to work for it. It hasn't been easy,
but you're here now.
I'm here now. That's what matters, right? So, and I'm doing what I love in Humboldt, so it's all coming together.
Worked out.
Yeah. I like to think so. I'm on my way.
Yeah.
I'm on my way.
I think you're getting there.
Yeah. I got to give it a couple more years, and because this year's the first time that I saw a pathway to do this. And this is what I've done in a year. My first year.
What happens in another 5?
Oh man.
Sky's the limit.
That's what I dreamed about, man. I mean, I already achieved my dream when I became a public speaker. After, every time I come up with a dream, I just keep having to come up with new ones. Now that I'm going to schools and I'm giving kids the opportunity to appreciate these organisms and in a safe environment where I can remove that stigma just for a day. Let me just interact with your kids for a day so that they can open their minds to what is available, because I never got that. I just had the stigma the whole time. I was able to shake it off. I don't think most people would be able to do that. So I'm creating that. I returned to a school yesterday and 2 busloads of kids started screaming my name before I could even make it into the office. They recognized me from the park. Man, and they told me about the collections that they were making and all the observations. Oh, I found this really cool bug over here. And I got to tell you, my heart was so full, and made it really easy to present myself back to that school. I was like,
going to see your fans.
Yeah, exactly. And the teachers there recognized me, and I'm thinking that I'm going to be able to return to that school and present to them too. But that means it's working. It means I'm doing exactly what I intended to. I'm giving them an avenue to explore this freely without ridicule, without those stigmas. And it's just the best feeling in the world.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, so much here. So much more to discuss, but
it's all in good time.
Yeah, all in good time.
Well, I'm glad you're out there doing this, man. I think it's important. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like the public reception has been really positive to it.
I'm especially looking forward to next week. I became friends. I like to believe that I'm a good judge of character. And I met a woman named Kim Burgell just as I was moving back to Humboldt about 4 years ago. And amazing woman. She even at one point pulled a homeless individual out of the bay mud during low tide, and the tide was coming in. The gentleman was passed out, and she went out and rescued him before she called 911. And she was in the paper for that. She has a heart. She has a huge heart. She's out in the trenches. She worked for the Pack Out Green. I watched her work for her volunteer for Pack Out Green team, which removes trash behind the Bayshore Mall. She's done constantly like that. And she is now I'm so grateful. She's such a great part of our community. And now she's the mayor of Eureka. So I have a meeting with her next week.
Oh, that'll be exciting.
I said, hey, Kim, I got our ecosystem. Can I share with you the largest insect collection of Humboldt species? Can I introduce you to the world? She said, yeah, absolutely. So I got a meeting with the mayor next week. I'm really excited about. It's
been a good year.
It's been the best year of my life. And I just have to keep coming up with new goals. My last goal after my season ended with the parks was, I want to see if I can make the biggest collection. We'll just say the biggest collection in Humboldt. I did that within a couple months. Now I already have to come up with a new goal. I'm like, okay, well, actually my goal's to not go back to digging ditches and to try to make this work and see if I can't pay my rent until next season and work for the parks again. And I'm on my way to do that.
I think that's a realistic goal for you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just really grateful for our community. I love Humboldt. Everybody here is just wonderful. And I'm grateful for your time today. I know this has been a long one.
Thanks for doing this, man. Really, I appreciate you coming on and chatting with me.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit more discombobulated than a lot of my presentations, but it seemed like you wanted to cover
a lot of ground.
And I feel like that's what we did today. I feel if anybody took the time to actually listen to this all the way through, that they're going to walk away from this with a greater understanding of the world around them, even if it's just the basics, insect vision, how to keep them out of your house. They're cold-blooded, if it's cold outside, they're going to keep you away. The coolest thing I saw the other day was a woman on YouTube, and she says, so dragonflies are one of the most successful hunters known to man, possibly because they were the first ones to conquer the skies. They practice interception versus pursuit, which means they predict where their prey is going to be, and they're like an NBA star. They just do all sorts of loops and tricks and barrel rolls, so they disguise their flight path, and they catch 95% of anything that they try to catch. So this woman was on a kayak in the evening time in a pond, and she says, this thing's covered in mosquitoes. I'm tired of getting bit up. So she bought a plastic dragonfly clip that was on a spring, and she put it in her hair. Nothing bit her. because she just put an apex predator on top of her head and nothing wants to get close to it. And my jaw dropped. I was like, that would work. Now there's a lot of gimmicks out there, but you know what? I am really excited to do what we do in the scientific community and do a peer review on that. That's one that'll be worth testing. It was better than in the or in Guatemala. I found out if you crush up ants, it creates a warning pheromone. So if you crush an ant, you'll notice all the other ants start scattering around. They all immediately know that one of them just got taken out. So they take defensive postures, figure out what's going on. Well, that pheromone translates to other species too. So, and I was taught this while I was going through the jungles of Guatemala. If you don't have mosquito spray, DDT, just crush up some ants in your hands, make it like sugar ants, something that can't bite you too much, and then rub it on your skin. Mosquitoes will stop biting you. And that actually worked for me.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's a handy trick to know.
Yeah, but you have to be a weird bug guy like me
to
be willing to.
Still, good to know.
When in Rome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was when you're in it like that, I was grateful for it. I didn't get like sticky or nothing. It was
fun experience.
Oh yeah, and I got all sorts of fun experiments I do all the time when I'm outside. That's how I take in the world.
Well, thanks again, man. This was a lot of fun. Do you want to plug all of your stuff where people can find you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I am an educational speaker. I am hoping to educate as many people in this community as possible. I have this card here. If you want to contact me, my number is 916-753-4111. My email is spelled just like my name, Kevin@huntleyfamily.net. Send me a message. Let me know what you're all about. And I would love to work with whatever programs or projects you have going on. Insects fit into everything. I don't know what they don't fit into. That's a shorter list. So that's me. I'm in the community. I'm a resource. Please use me. And thank you for your time. I'm just overwhelmed with blasting the weird thing that I like to the world and having it resonate finally.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, you're welcome.